Thank you for joining us. What support can you offer them?
Well, I think we continue the support that we've been giving, and the Prime Minister was Foreign Secretary beforehand, working in step with our Defence Secretary Ben Wallace and at the time Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and we continue to do that. And we need to make sure that the West is also resolved to making sure that Putin must fail and the people of Ukraine must succeed.
OK, so is there anything specific that we can do to help them, given these missile strikes that we have seen over the last couple of nights?
Well, of course, some of these operational matters of the direct support will be held, discussed confidentially with both within government, but also with the Ukrainian president. And I know that we have always stepped up to deliver what we can, but this is a time for other countries to continue the level of support that they've been showing, and where necessary to escalate their level of support directly to the Ukrainian armed forces, as we have done.
OK, this is our first opportunity to chat since the conference, and there has been a further slump in the polls. How are you going to get back on track?
Well, I'm very conscious that we've set out a plan for growth. There's a whole continuing of different policy improvements to try and help unlock our growth challenges that we've been facing. And indeed, the Chancellor announced yesterday he's brought forward the medium-term fiscal plan to the 31st of October.
Why has he done that?
I think he's chosen to do that, recognising that we wanted to get on and show how our plans and make sure people have confidence that they can get on and start delivering them. And he's decided that we're in a position where we can bring that forward.
It's not because the market's getting jittery again?
Not to my knowledge. I think it's about doing a lot of work, pace, understandably. But I think he decided that we're in a good state, and we'll continue to discuss this across government and indeed with parliamentary colleagues over the few weeks ahead.
You say in a good state, but the director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies is saying this morning that there's a £60 billion black hole in your figures, and that's either going to be done to sort it out with a hatchet to public spending or the equivalent of a 10p increase in the basic rate of tax. Which one?
Well, I think the IFS obviously does its own modelling. The government works with the Bank of England and the OBR on these measures, and that's what Treasury has been working on and doing different discussions with different departments. But I think the IFS also pointed out if we don't grow, then this problem will get worse and worse. And that's why, very clearly, the Prime Minister and Chancellor set out a plan for growth. A lot of that, of course, was the important element of giving assurance to household and to businesses about what support they would get on energy costs, much of which is not in the direct control of people. And we've already seen an impact in the reduction of inflation forecasts just from the measures that we've taken. But do consider we've had this aftershock of COVID. We've still not quite yet got the global supply chain going again. And we still have the huge problems on energy security, which is affecting not just this, hasn't been affecting just this country, but of course also countries right across Europe and elsewhere in the world. But people should be assured we have the second lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7.
Still got a £60 billion black hole, though. How are you going to fill it?
Well, I'm just flagging that IFS has come up with its own modelling.
Is it wrong?
And the Chancellor, that's not for me to say. That's their forecasts. The Chancellor will be speaking at the end of the month with the medium-term fiscal plan. OK,
but suggestions are that you will have to find, on their figures for now, we'll hear yours, as you say, by the end of the month. If you don't fix these figures with an increase in basic rate of income tax, you'll need to reduce the budget of every department except the NHS and Defence by 15%. Is there that much fat to get rid of?
Well, I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals, Kay. The Chancellor is working on that with, as I say, aspects of the OBR, other departments right now to go through. But the government is united. We have to get growth. Otherwise, and that will help us to fund our public sectors in the future as well.
OK. So you're not going to get into figures. We'll just have to wait and see till the 31st of October. As I said, the market's getting jittery again. One wonders what they might do between now and then. What we do know is that Santander are saying that they're setting, just looking at the exact quote from their boss, saying they're having to set aside more money for defaults because they think that people are just not going to be able to afford their mortgages going forward. How do you reassure them otherwise?
Well, the Bank of England sets the interest rates for the country, and it's for their projection to decide. We've had historically low interest rates for many years now, and of course, going through COVID, there was a lot of work done when many people either were benefiting from furlough or indeed were not, who had to be helped with that. I'm just flagging
that was then. That's historically what the government did to help people.
The Bank of England sets the interest rates. So it'll be.
What responsibility should this government take?
Well, the Bank of England sets interest rates. I'm not aware that any other commentator wants the government to start setting interest rates again, and I doubt Santander does as well. But the sorts of policies that we've shown, like our support to both households and businesses in substantial energy package, building on the £37 billion that we had already
talking
put
about
in place.
Building, you're talking about ditching home targets for affordable homes. Why are you doing that?
I'm not aware of any of that.
So that isn't true.
I'm not aware.
That isn't true. That apparently ministers have drawn up plans to exempt developers from having to build affordable homes, to scrap environmental protections and to allow people to add extensions without permission. That, according to Simon Clarke, that's not right.
I'm not aware of that policy, but if you want to ask Simon Clarke about policies...
Well, you're the Deputy Prime Minister, with all due respect.
Well, you're just throwing comments at me, Kay. I'm not aware of...
So it's not something that's been discussed around the
I'm not
table,
aware of specific things like that, no.
OK, how interesting.
Of course, I'm Secretary of State for Health, and that's... I have come on today to talk about what we're doing to help tackle the backlogs, and I'm pleased to be announcing a further 10 community diagnostic centres to be opened. I'm actually opening one formally today in London, but places in Burnley, places in Merseyside, places in the Isle of Wight will be getting a diagnostic centre, because we know getting on and delivering for patients is really important, and those diagnostics are a key part of making sure whether we know if people need treatment or not. And that is one of the critical backlogs that we need to get fixed.
Also talking about national insurance rise being scrapped today in Parliament. That's £36 billion over 3 years that will be gone. How will you protect the NHS, given that that money was going to be spent on the NHS and social care?
Well, that was going to be, in effect, a hypothecated levy that was set aside. The Prime Minister said clearly during her leadership campaign she didn't think it was right to put up taxes, and so this will be funded more generally from general taxation rather than specific levies. So it's the funding is still there in order to make sure both social care and health system, particularly that money was intended in the health system for tackling backlogs, that we spend that and then moving on to aspects of social care, of which we'll be doing the first down payment this winter with £500 million to be allocated across the country.
Nurses balloting to strike for the first time in 106 years, also relevant to your department. What are you going to do about that?
Well, I understand that the ballot is now open. We have honoured the independent pay review body's recommendations on this, and that was higher than many of the other pay rises that other public sector workers are getting. And I'm confident that those elements will continue to... Dare I say it, having respected the independent pay review body, I'm not anticipating that we'll be making any further changes. OK,
so it looks as though you'll have a strike on your hands.
Well, I think that's a decision for the nurses who decide how to vote in this next coming month.
OK, but, I mean, you're sitting here as the Deputy Prime Minister this morning. Nurses threatening to strike for the first time in 106 years. The head of Santander saying he's having to put extra money aside because he thinks that people are going to default on their mortgages. The Institute for Fiscal Studies saying there's a £60 billion black hole in your figures. And you just think the country will just carry on running as it is?
Well, no, we need to change. That's why we need a plan for growth and why we have a plan for growth.
But I've asked you for it.
And well, that was set out a few weeks ago. And then the medium-term fiscal plan is what the Chancellor will be saying at the end of the month. So it's not exactly business as usual. That's why, in my role as Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, we've got real focus on ABCD, the ambulances, backlogs I'm talking about today, as well as some of the things that we'll be doing in terms of care, including the discharge fund for this winter. So we'll continue to try and make progress in delivering for patients and indeed delivering right across the country, including the delivery of the energy cost package where we are supporting homes and indeed businesses.
You talk about the ABCD plan, which we've heard a lot about, both from you, from the Prime Minister, also from Nadeem Zahawi, who spoke about it too. What can we expect on the tobacco control plan?
Well, I'm focused at the moment on the ABCD. There's a whole number of different prevention strategies which are already underway, and some are being considered. My immediate focus has been ABCD. We've created within the NHS, local NHS boards, they're referred to as integrated care system boards, care systems which have a board, and that's where I'm intending to put a lot of our effort and focus on how we get that local health and social care system really working together. So that's where I'm putting a lot of my focus right now.
OK, the plan was vital, we were told, to help the government realise its ambition of becoming smoke-free by 2030. We heard that from Sajid Javid. Reducing the number of 15-year-olds who smoke from 8 to 3%. Reducing smoking adults in England from 15.5% to 12%. Reducing inequality gap in smoking prevalence. End of 2022 was the target. Has that target been scrapped?
I'm not aware any target's been scrapped.
So is it going to go ahead then?
I'm not aware any target has been scrapped. My focus right now is the ABCD. There's quite a lot of prevention programmes already underway. And I'll be, of course, looking at many more of these in detail. There's quite a lot of ambition that we have, looking at, say, the cancer plan. Again, we're going through that carefully. And my expectation, as the Prime Minister set out, is we'll publish that by the end of the year.
OK, my producer's just talking to me in my ear as I'm talking to you, so if she could just say me again. I think it's something from the Bank of England. Bear with me. There's a warning I'm being told from the Bank of England. And apparently there's an ongoing rout in the gilts market, a material risk in UK financial stability. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's news to me as well, and I suggest that...
But you're the Deputy Prime Minister, you have to have views on these things.
I've just been sat here for the last 10 to 15 minutes.
You weren't expecting it?
It's a matter, dare I say it, for the Chancellor. I'm sure that you can follow up with the Chancellor today.
The bank is saying that it's going to have to bolster its emergency bond buying plan.
Well, the Bank of England is the responsible organisation, and it's for them and the Chancellor to work together on this matter.
It's good to talk to you as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you.